Welcome to Living the Dream Iowa Life. I'm your host, Hannah Nuss, and each weekday we'll share enthusiasm for what's possible and dive into the stories of Iowans living their dream lives right here in the heartland. Whether you're chasing a big goal or just looking for a little inspiration, we've got you covered. Let's change the world together. This is Living the Dream Iowa Life. Let's go. Heyo, welcome to Living the Dream Iowa Life podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Nuss. It's such a fabulous day. It is. It really is. Because we're alive, because we woke up, because, I don't know, we were born in the first place. Can we go all the way back? The rarity that even happens. So to continue living another day, to continue sinking into this life and figuring out how all of it works. What a amazing world we live in. What a blessing. Hashtag blessed. Yes, let's go. Live, laugh, love. Come on. I wanted to discuss today our connection question of the day that will ground our show in something. Here it is. Who were you in your lowest existence? So I want us to think back to a time where we were darker than where we are now. And there's a possibility that you're in your darkness in this current moment. I really want us to think about what it is that we're doing in those moments. Who are we? What makes that your darkest time? What were you doing? How were you moving? What was the truth of that moment for you? What was going on? And I can pick out a few different instances, okay? And the reason that this is important is because when we pick through that, we can find our way back to truth. And we're going to follow up this episode with an episode about rooting, about our roots. And so, did I just say roots like it was supposed to be said? But it's not said like that. Roots. We can go back to our roots. There we go. Those are my roots, okay? I can't, I can change it, obviously. I just said rooted. But do we say rutted? Our roots? We're rutted? We're rutted? Maybe that's why you can't really say that properly. Okay. When we're rooted in our truth, in something that is true, when there is something there to grab onto, we aren't all of these things that are so opposite of our truths. And so when I was little, I was really just rooted in magic. Okay? Magic. The magic of the world, the wonder, the enthusiasm of life, and the unfolding next day, the excitement of that. What are we going to do today? That was the truth of my roots. And I loved it. I explored, I asked questions. I was super annoying and strange. I wandered around abandoned railroad tracks. I watched grasshoppers jump around all day. I thought about, how do they jump so high? What do they do? Why do they stick to you? Grouse, why is it sticking to me? Thought about all these things. What could this be? What could that be? Why? What was this? Why is this still here? What purpose does it serve? And unfolding and unfolding and unfolding, questioning and wondering and moving through the world. In fact, my grandpa, when I was born, he came in and said, I have never seen a newborn child so openly interpreting the world. I've never seen such wide eyes on a newborn baby. Usually they are sleeping. Not Hannah. She's like, what's going on? Where are we? We got to figure this out. And he would constantly comment on that. And I do find it funny because my eyes were something that stood out early on. I had green eyes. Everyone else has blue. In my family, my grandmother was from Ireland. So my grandpa moved over here from England in 1912. And then my grandma, I need to figure out her story because I can't remember if they came over at the same time, at a similar time, but they came over from Ireland. And so they had really strong roots to those upbringings. Like my grandpa always had tea. He lived to be almost 100. We always had English tea at sometime in the afternoon. I would say it was around 2 or 3. Every time that I was over there. And he did it every day. Had his kettle, had his things. Obviously, he came over to the United States. There would have been a lot of reasons to abandon such practice, right? But that was part of his root package from England. And my grandma, she was from Ireland, and she too had green eyes. And the green eyes had not shown back up until this child. Da, 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 da. So I had green eyes. In fact, the doll, which I talked about a couple of episodes about, that she made with green eyes because we had green eyes. We had green eyes. What a rarity. What a beautiful thing to have green eyes. So when I was a child, I was just a natural, curious wanderer. My eyes were always a comment. Wow, what big eyes you had. And I don't think that I have big eyes. I think I have wondering eyes. Like, I got to know more about that. And the wider I can get these things, the better, because I got to figure this thing out. And it's going to take all of my eyeball. It might even take the back part of my eyeball that doesn't even take in any images. But I got to get it all figured out, and it shows on my face immediately. So what my grandpa saw in that hospital room is still today how I move through this world, or is now how I move through this world. So we're going to get into the darkness here, right? This is kind of the bright spot, the existence, the truth in my roots. They came from somewhere. These eyes, these piercing, ridiculous eyes, these green eyes that no one else has. What a weirdo. But right, it was wondering eyes. They're not bigger eyes than anyone else's, but they are wide open to figure out what comes next, to figure out and find just where we go from here. What is going on? What has happened? I need to know. So wandering out of that light and the truth and those roots, I kind of wander and open myself up to society's lens. Hannah, who are you? Ooh, that's not a good you to be. There's no truth in that. Definitely the school system and the way that I learned. Because I was noted as a beautiful writer, but because I am dyslexic, which is not something that we've discussed here before, but my sentences get turned around. So if there is a flow to my writing that gets interrupted, it's because I have already read the sentence ahead, and how I write out words is somewhat backwards to how other people may write that. And so writing is actually a super big challenge for me because it pulls me to root in what is, to root in silence. And I have to be kind of in that slow, steady pace of world in order to produce words. And even then, thank you, editors, because I think really there's so many gifts of other people that allow kind of expansive, wondering people to open that up to the world, whatever that looks like. So I didn't fit in a regular school setting very well, and the result of that was, I don't know that I was disruptive, but I did definitely figure out that I was quick-witted, and so instead of trying to be smart, which is not something that I gravitate towards naturally, instead of trying to excel at that, I excelled at making friends and having conversations and writing a little bit. But at some point, when I got the feeling that that was capped for me, that this wasn't what society wanted, I started kind of conforming. And this would lead to my darker years of adult self. And when you're rooting, because at some point, and I know that this is a kind of a new ideology, and I think at some point I will break all of this down for you, because this is a new becoming, a new language that we're all going to have to get to know here. In that becoming of that darker adult, in the coming of age, I realized what I realized in school. Like, this doesn't fit. And while you want to expand and be creative and be this thing, because this feels so true and real and beautiful, this isn't something you can be successful at. This isn't something that people live off of. And how many of us have truth in those roots? We can't be an artist. We can't be a writer because we'll be broke forever. Right. And so I just listened. I was like, no, you're right. You're right. Art, that's crazy. Hannah, don't keep going to art school. Come on. We know that you loved that photography class and that art class, and learning more about objects and relativity and just really the exploration of art and creativity. And you loved all of those classes, but this is not something worth rooting to. Right. And there were no mentors for me. There was no one that I was connected to that could tell me and show me and reach into me and say, yeah, you can do it. Here's how I structured it. Right. There was no one close enough. So I went to this place of darkness. And what I will say about my place of absolute darkest times, and there have been a few of them in adulthood, is the roots were wavering. And hey, and right when those roots were wavering, I kind of needed them most. I was looking for a place, for a truth, for a something, right? Because I had just gone into adulthood, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And I got my family, and I feel really rooted in that truth. And I have athletics, and I feel super rooted in that and where I belong in that world. And yeah, I got to pick a career, but in that moment, I pick art. Because I have my family, I have athletics, and even if I can't hold on to athletics, this feels more expansive, even more expansive than that. And I really think that that is a natural transition. Once we have this physical manifestation of our power, it's sort of easy to walk into a creative or a spiritual manifestation of our power. And I do think that that's one of the more important reasons that yoga is such a great expander into creativity and openness, because the power of balance in those classes really can help you root to a physical truth, and expansion after that into spirituality is kind of a normal next step. And so for me, I was rooted in early adulthood. I actually felt really great. And then I was just delivered some blows that year. So that would have been my freshman year. I would have been turning 19. I didn't believe these same blows that were kind of given to me at graduation, like, Hannah, I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, my parents really think that I can do this thing. I'm going to go do sports. They're supporting me. They love this for me. This makes sense. I'm going to go do that. I'm great at this. I feel great. Like, I'm leaving the top of my game. I just started this sport 5 years ago and I got a scholarship to go play some more. Like, I don't know. I'm good. In my mind, I'm like, everything that I want is mine. I'm good. I'm 18. I'm living it up. And that summer, right? Because even though I left high school super rooted, like, hey, you can say whatever you want. I don't even believe you. Right? Because I had such strong roots in my family, in my knowing, in this physical power. You couldn't tell me that. No. So in that moment, it's interesting because I had gone through my electives that first year and I was like, you know what? I really like art. My senior year of high school, I take almost all art classes because I want to bump up my GPA, and I had already kind of passed through all of the curriculum. So literally, my senior year was art classes. It was amazing. And not because I was great at it, right? And I would say, oh, it's an easy A, so I'll take art. But I really loved exploring the different practices, kind of getting a glance into creativity. And it wasn't something that I had allowed myself because in high school, we are who we are, right? And I had been friends with kind of everyone all leading up to that, but I hadn't really dove into those groups, even though my friends were kind of everywhere. I just find people extremely interesting. So I wanted to keep just meeting more people and learning about them. And I had a really close knit, close group of friends, one best friend in particular, Leah. And they really were my root. And everybody else was just like so interesting to talk to, so beautiful to talk to. And so what happened my freshman year summer of college, going into my sophomore year, my parents get divorced and sort of have to abandon me because they're going through so much financially. My coach kind of delivers the news to me that I'm not going where I thought I was going to go. I'm not going to be a Division I athlete. I don't really have the friend group that I have. I have my athlete friends, but I'm not connected to my friend group from school. And so really right in that moment, whew, every root pulled up and this unsettling darkness. Now, I had already chosen that I would go into graphic design and that would be my sophomore year, would be focusing on graphic design. And I thought, I'll go through that 2-year program. Well, when those roots got ripped out, it was like, art's not a possibility for you. You idiot. What were you thinking? Well, I was thinking from my rooted self. I was thinking in my most beautiful, expansive, powerful self. And that's what chose creativity for me. That's what chose it. Yeah, imagine. That's what did it, friends. That is what did it. And I I wanted to do that. And I did. I kept going because I had already registered for everything and kind of took out the loans to buy the computers that I need and whatever it is that we do, right? And so when that darkness set in, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this is it. Some people get to live their dreams and some don't. And I am the some don't. I don't get to pick. Right? And I'm told that again and again in life throughout time. People like you don't get to pick. You don't get to create your life. You don't get to do that. Your life is created for you. You sit where you are put. And we have chosen to put you here. Understand what a blessing that is. Be happy, be grateful for where you have been placed, because it is better than most. And I was trying, I really was, but my darkness was taking over. It was running rampant. And it set in at 18. And so in adulthood, my darkness really looked like me kind of coming for people weaker than me, people who had opportunities that I did not, people who got to live the dream when I did not. Like, no, that's not fair. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be that. Right? And so I would cut those people down. I would, and I wouldn't, because at the same time, somewhere in adulthood, I kind of come back to athletics and I make good with that, that phase of life for me. And I have such a beautiful impact. And yet I am sort of running from the beauty of that at the same time. Like, it was such a beautiful experience. And honestly, it was my first time. And while it wasn't physical for me, even though I was putting myself through essentially a similar physical challenge, because I was training for marathons at the time, and I felt like with my athletes, I needed them to know that, even though they didn't know, right? I wouldn't tell them, but I'm on this same physical challenge. I will train as hard as, and I don't think I trained as hard as them, but I will train hard too. I'm in this with you. I will challenge myself right alongside you. And so I feel like that was the power back in adulthood. And while I had a lot of darkness in those seasons as well, that was my way back to the power of my being. And I was definitely moving my body consistently. I was kind of rediscovering the strength of who I am as a person. And for me, that is always rooted in that physical strength, examples of that physical strength for me. So I'm rerouting there. I find some roots. I sort of release these old roots of truth, the power of those old roots, the old roots that I didn't get the dream that I had set out to. And one of the dreams that I had was to win a state title. And when I did that, even though it was as a coach, it was sort of this recognition that a big part of this chapter and truth for me has closed. And while volleyball has come back to save me in more ways than one, it's sort of just a side story of my life. It's not the main character. And I think volleyball had been the main character of my story. I wasn't. That sport was for me. And I think that gave me permission to kind of close that and go on this even more important spiritual mission, because of that rediscovery of power. And I was spiteful, I was dark, I was angry. I did that. I was still, I'm certain, spiteful and dark and angry and trying to figure myself out. And one of the darkest moments was the year after we had made it, and ego takes over. And all of a sudden, I'm coaching from this staunchy place of, I'm such a smart coach. And I stop asking questions and I stop getting curious about what our team needs and where we're at. And I check into this place of real deep ego of like, yeah, I made it and now I'm important. And it is so hard to not root into the ego, into what you're being told by other people. And I have one of my worst seasons that I had ever had, and I'm spinning and I'm like, what the F went wrong? And I'm like, it's because we're not successful anymore. All that matters here is winning. That's the truth of athletics. I can't survive here if I even wanted to. Everybody hates me, but it's not because they hate me. It's because they hate losing. Da 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 da. And I'm spinning and I'm talking and I'm stuck and I'm dark and I'm drowning and I don't know what to do anymore. And eventually kind of peace washes over me. One of my very, very wise friends, Beth, just texts me and she's like, this can just end. You can just close the chapter. There is no drama necessary. And so that day, I call up the team. I'm like, hey, I'm done coaching and I am so grateful for this journey, but this chapter is closed for me. And I don't think anyone was expecting it. Maybe some people were. So I closed that chapter, and that was the start of rediscovering myself, of having actual time to devote to myself, to devote to the things that I want now, sort of these deeper, more meaningful things. And it allowed me to stop trying to plant my roots in something that was removable and find what wasn't for the first time in my life. And that really was the quest to discontinue darkness. That was the want there, because I had been spinning for such a long time, just kind of working and burning out and working and burning out. And I didn't know who I was at all. And I didn't know where to find her. But I did know that if I didn't stop finding her here in this sport, then I would never get where I needed to go. And, to release that and to give permission. And that was super hard at that point because guess what? It was the only thing I had ever been good at. Okay? It was the only thing that anyone had ever approved of me being good at. It was the only place that I had ever seen myself sort of find the truth of my existence, find the truth of my discipline, find myself, find who I needed to be. And so letting go felt like the ultimate loss. And there was not a grieving process set up. There's not like a funeral and people bringing you casseroles, like we can't reroute in the comfort of food in those moments because nobody's there. Nobody's knocking on your door. Hey, saw the obituary for your dream. I know. I brought you a taco casserole and a peach crisp. I know it's tough to lose a dream. Rest. Eat. Refuel. re-find yourself. Okay? Let me know if you need anything. I'll be here. You want me to do your laundry? Okay. All right. I'm here for you. Right? And the way that we show up for grief with loss of life, is so drastically different than how we show up for people in grief of the loss of a dream, of the death of a dream. Huh? Yeah. Got it? And why? I think it's probably the rapid reoccurrence, the darkness that exists within all of us in the loss of our dreams. The reality that could be us, the reality that it has been us, the reality that no one is coping with this super well. Because most of us are just going, my God, pay the bills. Right? And we do. And there's truth in that. And we also sort of build ourselves into lives at times that constrict our expansion. Like, I'd love to do all these dream things, but I have 12,000 children. Can't. Restricted. No way to do that. No way. And it's true. You probably can't. That's probably not wrong. But I think sometimes we build the houses that are going to hold us intentionally, because it's easier than dealing with the fact that we didn't get it and we don't know how to refigure that out. Okay, enough on that, right? Who are you in your darkest? And in my darkest, I am ruthless, ripping people apart. There are exact rules and no one is following them well enough. I am disciplined to a state of psychosis. I am judgmental and dream downgrading like a pro. That is who I am in my darkness. She is vicious. You do not want to meet her in a dark alleyway and tell her your dreams, because she will take all of them and throw them away for you. And that is not my innate truth. That is not who I am in fullest expansion. But that is who I am when I am backed into a corner. And that is who I am when I am scared and insecure. As always,